What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here is Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does. Now, if there's one major lesson that we have learned ever since October 7th, I got it right this time. I didn't say October 6th. I don't know why the hell I said that, but if there's one thing that I've learned since October 7th is you don't mess with Israel, especially in America, right? We've been seeing all these pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas protests all over college campuses for like a month now, and we have seen the backlash, right? Like some of these people that fund these left-wing activist groups and protests and all this other stuff are starting to back out from this because they're like, oh, I had no idea that my money was funding pro-Palestine sentiments in this country, so they've been backing off, except for George Soros, by the way. Yeah, just to let you know where his loyalties lie. But as I was saying, the lesson that we have learned, you don't mess with Israel, right? We had Congress, for God's sakes, make up legislation to put anti-Semitism monitors on college campuses, for God's sakes. It's like, what the hell's going on with this? You can't get these people to do anything about the border. You can't get these people to do anything about the $1.7 trillion deficit spending. You can't get these people to act on anything. But you start protesting against Israel, and all of a sudden, the guns come out, and they just start popping off shots everywhere. And just, hey, get out of my way, Israel, right? There's a big conspiracy going on that Israel actually controls the United States. That's kind of a ridiculous conspiracy, but there are a lot of people out there that believe it. And, you know, with stuff like what's been happening over the past month, you can't really blame them because Congress doesn't do anything, right? Especially the Republican-led Congress. They've been doing a whole hell of a lot of infighting, a whole hell of a lot of investigating, but not a whole hell of a lot of legislating that is worth a damn, if you ask me. But, like I said, if there's any takeaways, you don't mess with Israel. Check this out. Biden withholding aid from Israel sure looks impeachable. Opinion. This is a scathing article about Joe Biden, and I just love it because, you know, when you play partisan games, you win stupid freaking prizes, if you will. Let's get into it right quick. This is just great. The Biden administration has put a hold on a shipment of military aid to Israel in a nakedly political attempt to win votes in key swing states. Presidents have been impeached for far less. Yes, this is obvious to anyone that pays attention, right? We've got all these protests going on, and Joe Biden and the Democrats are absolutely bleeding voters like you wouldn't believe. These people are out there screaming, "Genocide Joe, Genocide Joe." You know, they're voting for nobody in the primaries and all this other stuff. We've seen a lot of anti-Joe Biden sentiment recently. And it's been great, you know, as far as I'm concerned. This is good. Joe Biden is a very corrupt individual, but of course, these people, they just want the genocide to stop. Of course, they don't really know what's going on the ground. Nobody in America really knows what's going on the ground unless you've been over there, right? We get propaganda from Israel. We get propaganda from Palestine. So we have no idea. It's the fog of war. So what can you say, right? Like, I wish Israel wouldn't kill so many damn civilians, but it's a war. It's gonna happen. Not saying that's justified, because by no means is it justified. It's not, but it does happen. And you know, it's unfortunate, but it does happen. But, you know, Joe Biden has come out, oh, I'm pro-Israel and all this other stuff, but yet you get these protests going on, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, hang on, Israel, you need to chill the hell out, because they're bleeding voters. So he's trying to win back some of this support because he's down in the polls. It's looking really bad for him for 2024. So what does he do? The Impoundment Control Act of 1974 governs the control of funds appropriated by Congress. It was enacted to reassert Congress's power of the purse and prevent the president from simply substituting their own funding decisions for those of Congress. While it was once an obscure rule on governing spending, the masses may remember it for its brief starring role in the first impeachment of President Donald J. Trump, as the Democratic-led impeachment inquiry report explained. President Trump ordered the suspension of $391 million in vital military assistance urgently needed by Ukraine, a strategic partner to resist Russian aggression. Right? This was the absolute BS impeachment of Donald Trump when he was wanting the president of Ukraine to investigate, hey, what the hell's going on over here with Joe Biden? And, getting the prosecutor fired and all this other BS, right? Which, that's a legitimate concern. He was like, hey, hang on. We might just withhold some military aid to you. In that now infamous phone call, right? It was just an idle threat, essentially, but they impeached him for it, for God's sakes. It's like, what is going on? Of course, the Senate saw the writing on the wall, and they acquitted him of any wrongdoing because, that's retarded. Because the aid was appropriated by Congress on a bipartisan basis, and signed into law by the president, its expenditure was required by law. Acting directly through his subordinates within the U.S. government, the president withheld from Ukraine this military assistance without any legitimate foreign policy, national security, or anti-corruption justification. Actually, there was anti-corruption justification because of the...
If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
That whole thing. The president did so despite the long-standing bipartisan support of Congress, uniform support across federal departments and agencies for the provision to Ukraine of the military assistance and his obligations under the Impoundment Control Act. Just switch Ukraine for Israel and Hamas for Russia, and the rest of the paragraph reads exactly the same, except, of course, that Trump denied he put any improper hold on the aid, and President Biden has not. Yes, he has not. He is outright almost saying, I am doing this because I am bleeding support, and please vote for me in November. You've got to come back around. Look, I'm with you guys on the pro-Palestinian thing, right? I'm with you. I'm going to withhold this military aid, this congressionally approved aid. Just how bad is it for a president to withhold congressionally approved military aid to another country? And to do this to a Democratic ally facing an existential war. Why? It is nothing short of an abuse of power, or at least that is how the then candidate for president, Joe Biden, described it in 2020. Oh my goodness. Hey, How about what you say? You might want to remember the stuff you say, because if you act in the exact same way, what you said is going to come back to bite you in the ass. But yeah, we've seen plenty of clips of Joe Biden saying something like back in the 90s or even the early 2000s that it totally goes against what he's saying today. So yeah, he's grifting, by the way. It's all a grift just to get his supporters back, his lovely supporters that hate America, that hate Israel, that hate everything about this country, that hate Joe. Yeah, it's outright nuts. Of course, the ICA does provide for some limited circumstances in which the president can try to withhold or delay the delivery of funds, but it includes very specific procedures that the administration must go through in order to notify Congress, who still have the power to approve or disapprove of the president's decisions. None of those procedures were implemented here. What does it say about a president who unilaterally decides that he does not have to follow the law, and specifically the ICA? It would mean that, quote, we have a president who believes there is no limit to his power. We have a president who believes he can do anything and get away with it. We have a president who believes he is above the law. Or at least that is how the then candidate for president, Joe Biden, explained the appearance of impropriety in 2020. Oh my God, you gotta love it. You got to love it. Some may argue that this behavior, while wrong, could not possibly constitute the kind of high crimes or misdemeanors that might lead to a president to get impeached. And yet, as the U.S. Government Accountability Office found in January 2020, this kind of unlawful decision does have very real constitutional significance. Faithful execution of the law does not permit the president to substitute his own policy priorities for those that Congress has enacted into law. In fact, Congress was concerned about exactly these types of withholdings when it enacted and later amended the ICA. All federal officials and employees take an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution and its core tenets, including the congressional power of the purse. In fact, in its Principles of Federal Appropriations Law, 4th Chapter 1, 2016, the GAO referred to the congressional power of the purse as the most important single curb in the Constitution on presidential power. I've said this many times. Congress has loads of power it can wield against anybody and everybody. Just look at what they're doing to the protesters, for God's sakes. They're trying to call in the National Guard to shut these protests down if the police don't get a handle on it, but it seems like the police are kind of doing their job, and we're not going to need the National Guard to go in and clean things up. But you had Mike Johnson go out to Colombia just to tell these protesters that. And then they made up whole legislation about it, like I was saying earlier in the intro. It's outright insane. But Congress has a lot of power. And I say all the time, they don't wield that power. They could absolutely force Joe Biden to close the southern border. They could absolutely force Joe Biden to go through and reappropriate his budget and all of the governmental offices, all of the departments, to reappropriate their budgets to not spend in a $1.7 trillion deficit. But they don't do so because they don't care about us. They only care about lining their own pockets through the lobby interests that remains in control of this country in Washington, D.C. They don't care about us, y'all. And stuff like this and stuff like that went on in Colombia proves it. Numerous lawmakers have already sent the White House correspondence demanding answers and accountability. The deadline to respond to at least some of those letters has already passed. What then should be done to a president who acts like a king? Hard to say in these fraught times, but at least some people are of the opinion that this, quote, will leave Congress, in my view, no choice but to initiate impeachment. Or at least that is what the then candidate for Biden thought in 2020 when that was the more popular answer. Oh God, you gotta love it, right? According to experts like Colonel John Spencer, chair of urban warfare at West Point, Israel is fighting a just war and doing so as humanely as possible. The quickest way to end the war, the fastest way to save as many lives as possible, Israeli, Palestinian, and American, and the only way to keep the world safe for democracy is to defeat Hamas. And the president knows that, even if potential voters in Michigan do not. That's freaking hilarious, by the way. Making decisions against the best interests of our own national security as well as the security of our allies for personal political gain is the definition of corruption. Or at least that is what the then candidate Joe Biden said in 2020 when it wasn't him doing so. Holy crap, this is about the most scathing article on Joe Biden I've seen in a while. This is just so telling about Joe Biden's character and about how he doesn't care about America, and he is absolutely destroying this country. Look what he's doing. The article even said earlier, at least Trump said he wasn't trying to withhold it. He just told him that on the phone to get the guy to investigate. Joe Biden is outright saying he's withholding and doesn't care what anybody thinks. Yeah, I do believe you want to impeach Donald Trump on some BS, right? Don't be mad when Joe Biden gets impeached for the same exact freaking thing. This is absolutely nuts, in my opinion. And these people don't care, right? Like they were told by a lot of people, you go through with this impeachment of Donald Trump, next time the House is in control, the Republicans have control of the House, and we have a Democratic president. Don't be mad when we initiate impeachment proceedings on your president for absolutely no freaking reason. But have the Republicans done that? No, they haven't done it yet. They've initiated an impeachment inquiry, sure, but for good freaking reason, right? Like, and they sat on their laurels for a long time before they even got to that. This guy should have never even became president. You had the corporate press running cover for the Biden administration during the 2020 presidential election cycle, right? Like with the Hunter Biden laptop story and all this stuff, trying to portray Joe Biden in the best possible light when Joe Biden wasn't even out on the campaign trail. Sure, I know we had a pandemic, but putting that aside, he wasn't out on the campaign trail. And, you know, they covered up the Hunter Biden laptop story. The journalists are supposed to be the one that hold the government to account, but they are running cover for the freaking government, trying to lie about everything that Joe Biden does, trying to paint Joe Biden in the best possible light, because they're all Democrat activists, and sure, they have no problems whatsoever lying to get more political power. And that is what the Democrats love to do. They do it all the time. Now, that's not saying Republicans don't do it, because all politicians do it. And sure, Republicans are bad. We will see if they go through impeachment of Joe Biden for this. If they do not, they do not have a freaking spine. They might want to say, oh, well, we're not going to play the Democrats' games. We're not going to drop down to their level. I'm sorry, that's a cop-out. That's just copium trying to deal with some bullshit that, yeah, you play stupid games, you win stupid freaking prizes. You know, F around and find out. That's what I would have to say. And I would beg every single one of you people out there, if Congress does not go through with impeachment on this, and you have a Republican congressman, voice your opinion. Let them know you are very dissatisfied with their actions. And you are very dissatisfied with allowing a corrupt regime to just continue to be corrupt with zero accountability on their behalf. It's like, what is going on? Just let them know, hey, you're not going to vote for them again. As a matter of fact, you're going to get out there and you're going to campaign against their campaign, if you will. You're going to vote for the other guy. You're going to vote for the opposition if you have to, because I said it the other day. You might vote for the opposition, but if it's a genuine person, sure, they may have democratically insane views. But if they're at least a genuine person, and they see that spending in a $1.7 trillion deficit is stupid, and they see that, yeah, we have to have law and order to have a country, and they see that, yes, we have to have a border to have a country, and yes, we can't have all this corruption in our government to have a country, that Democrat would be way better than almost any Republican in the House currently. You know, say for it about 10 to 12 Republicans. And that's it, y'all. That's a crying shame that a Democrat that at least believes in the rule of law and fiscal responsibility would be better than a Republican. That's nuts, y'all. But like I said, let these people know. Get out there, voice your opinion, let them know you're dissatisfied, let them know what's going on, let them know how you feel. You're not going to stand up for this $1.7 trillion deficit spending BS. You're not going to stand up for open freaking borders. You're not going to stand for all these things. I know I was saying stand up. Oops. Sue me, if you will. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Should we really impeach Joe Biden for this? Right? Like anybody out there that thought the Donald Trump impeachment was stupid? Do you think we should go through with the same stupidity just because the Democrats did it? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.